Thanks for stopping by. I recently got myself a track saw and I need to make a jig for it. The jig that I want to make for it is a square, so I can just take the track and butt it up against a piece of plywood or whatever else I'm cutting, and I don't have to worry about making extra marks, just have to make one mark and I'll have a nice 90-degree cut. Let's get to it. I watched a couple videos about track saw squares that you can buy, and it seems like for the most part you have one of two options. Either they're really cheap and they don't work very well, or they're really expensive but they do a good job. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't want to spend a lot of money, so I'm going to try and make one myself. I think I can come up with something that's going to do okay. I ordered a set of track saw connectors from Amazon, and these are universal. They're going to work with most track saws. I'll put a link in the description down below where I got these, and the reason why I ordered another set is I don't want to take the ones that came with my tracks and cut them up, because these are going to be too long as is. First thing I need to do is cut one of these in half. I'm going to be taking this connector and putting it in the bottom of the track, and I'm going to be mounting it to a piece of plywood, but as you can see it doesn't come all the way through the track to where I need it to be, so I'm going to need to cut a spacer to put between this and the plywood. I tried to find some washers but couldn't find anything good. I think a spacer is going to work out better. So the space on my track is almost 9 millimeters. So I need to cut a spacer just a little bit smaller than that. I want this to be 9 millimeters, but I'm going to cut this on the waist side, so I need to add the thickness of my saw blade, which is 1.5 millimeters. So I'm going to go to 10.5 millimeters, and I'm just going to back it off a little bit, maybe go to like 10.4, 10.3. And that's just a tiny bit loose, but I don't want it too tight, so I think I'm going to go with that. I took a file and scratched this up a little bit, so hopefully the epoxy will bond a little better. I'm going to be using a piece of 1/2 inch plywood for the jig, and the reason why I'm using 1/2 inch is I don't want it to interfere too much when I'm cutting things, and most of the material I'm going to be cutting with the track saw is going to be 3/4 of an inch, so I want it to be a little bit thinner, so that's why I'm going with 1/2 inch. And I'm going to make this about 7 by 14. Here's the 2 pieces of plywood I'm going to use for the jig, and this one's 14 by 7 and this one's 5 by 7. So I want to take the bigger piece and put it under the end of the track and flush it up to this corner here, right in line with the splinter guard. Kind of see if it's square. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect just yet. And to avoid measuring, I'm just going to make a mark right in the center of the lower T-track. and extend it all the way across. I don't know if I'm gonna use clamps with this or not, but just to give myself the option, I'm just gonna put 2 little notches so the clamps won't interfere with the jig if I do use them. The clamps that came with the Wen track have this little tab on the back. So if I do use these clamps with the track, it's going to stick past the notch a little bit. So I needed to trim this a little bit shorter. Now I just need to line this up on that line that I made. Double check that it's square. And mark for the screws. When I first started woodworking, I wasn't real big on pre-drilling, but let me tell you, it does make a difference with your accuracy and ruining a piece of work. Now it should slide right into the bottom of the track. Now I'm going to take the other piece that I cut and pre-drill for some screws on the long edge. The purpose of these 2 screws is going to be to fine-tune the square if it's ever out of adjustment. So you want to start out with them both sticking out the same amount, not very much at all. And it's a good idea to use flathead screws. Now before I put this together so I can attach the other piece, I'm going to put some masking tape here just to give me a little bit of space so that the jig isn't too tight when I go to slide it in there. I think I'm actually going to use 2 layers just to be on the safe side. When you're done with your masking tape, take it and bend it underneath itself like this. Then you always have a little flap here. Don't have to worry about trying to find the end. So now I just slide this in. Get it flush at the back side. And you'll see it's a little bit loose, but that's okay. That's what I wanted. I'm going to use this plastic square to square it up as best I can. That should be good. I'll clamp it down so it doesn't shift around. Double check it. Now I'm going to put this part on with the 2 screws sticking out of it with the screws up against the tape. While the glue's setting up, I'm going to pre-drill a couple more holes. I'll show you what that's for in a second. This is what it looks like all finished up. I'll put a link where I got these clasps from. You may be able to pick them up locally, but I'll give you a link just in case you can't. These pieces of metal here, I cut these off of a curtain rod bracket. So this is something you're going to have to come up with on your own. Let me show you how this works. Slide it in, put it where you want it on the track. And then use these clasps to pull it up tight against these screws. And now it's nice and solid, it's not going anywhere. Now when I have a big piece of plywood I need to cut, I can just slide it right up against it, clamp it if I want to from underneath, and I'm going to have a nice square 90-degree cut. If for whatever reason you're making a cut and it's not quite square, you can tweak these screws just a little bit, and then when the clasp pull the rail up tight, you can adjust your square that way. This piece of metal right here, the reason I put that on there is I can slide it forward like that, and then if I'm holding down on the rail square like this, I don't have to worry about the track and the rail square rocking back and forth. It's nice and solid this way. And I put one of these on this side in case I want to use the square from this side. I can just slide it like that and hold it that way, depending on how I want to use it, either on this side or over here. Pretty easy to build for a couple of dollars worth of hardware and a few scraps of plywood, and you're going to have a square that's just as accurate as anything you could buy. Hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching.